Hi guys, Stephanie here, Seed Sprout Grow. I'm showing you today a super low-key way to plant your blueberry transplants. These are going to be bare root plants that we ordered online, and as you can see behind me, we've got some very thick grass. My husband didn't really want to dig it all up, so we are doing a bit of a modified approach. I got my garden hat on. Everest, my baby, he's been pulling on it recently, so it's a little misshapen, but let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing that he did was just dig me out some holes that are maybe 1.5 feet wide, and I asked him to go about 1 foot deep. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take out the maybe 2 shovelfuls of this native soil, which is like a really rich kind of loomy clay. And then I'm going to loosen up the soil around this hole. Okay. Next step that we're going to do, and I already did it on a couple of these holes, is dump in maybe about 1 gallon's worth of compost. This is mushroom compost we've got in here, but that's just because that was what was on sale. Usually we just use like cow compost, but it is organic, and that we do always go for the organic compost. Okay, so now what I did was I added maybe 1 quart or about 1/2 gallon of peat moss to each of my holes for my blueberries. And what I'm going to do is mix up these 3 different soils: the native soil, the mushroom compost, and the peat moss, so that we have about an equal blend in these holes. So I'll show you what that looks like when I'm done. Okay, so I've got my soil kind of blended up. We're not making a cake batter here, so nothing needs to be super perfect, but you do want to try to make sure that all 3 of those mediums are well incorporated into that hole you're going to dig. These holes back here, I've got some other berries coming probably later next week. I'm just going to leave these alone for now, and we'll plant those when they come. Before I water in any of these holes or plant my actual plants, I'm going to go ahead and prepare this bed now for our Back to Earth garden method that we use. Sorry, not Back to Earth, Back to Eden, that we use for the rest of the garden. So what I'm going to do is, with the amount of cardboard we have, lay cardboard down everywhere but the hole. We probably don't have enough cardboard for that, so we're going to use some paper called Red Royson or Rawson paper. It's kind of like contractor's paper, to fill in any of the holes, and then top it off with some wood mulch we have. And after all of that, then I will go ahead and plant these. But we're going to have 7, 5, I think there's 1 here, 6, 7 blueberries. 6 are ones I just ordered, and 1 is one that I saved last year. So I will show you what this looks like in just a bit after I've got some of the layering down. Okay, so you can see that that is all the cardboard we had. I just laid 2 beds, so I wasn't expecting to have much, but that was less than I thought we even had. The rest of it is this red Rawson or Royson paper. It's like contractor's paper. Do I recommend this paper? No. We bought this paper last year when we were originally laying our Back to Eden beds. It is just extremely difficult to work with. It's what we had, so it's what I'm currently using. But I don't recommend using it. It is cheap. Maybe 17 bucks for a roll that covers a lot. This was maybe half a roll here. This is a pretty large size bed, bigger than I thought maybe it would be. But it's so flimsy. You have to constantly keep it wet. You're constantly fighting the wind. You can see I've got like bricks and rocks and things laying it off. You just have to wet it and wet it and wet it, and basically once it's down, you need to cover it. It's not going to stay in place for more than a little bit of time, even soaking wet. So here's what it looks like. The next step I'm going to do is lay most of the mulch at least around the paper so it doesn't blow away. And then we will plant once we get some mulch down. We really don't want to walk on this paper as little as we can while it's wet, because it'll tear and it'll defeat the whole purpose of laying it. So I'm going to go lay some mulch, and I'll show you in a little bit what it looks like. Okay, so this is basically what it looks like now. This is the first layer of wood chips. It's gonna go thin right now just to kind of keep the paper down and keep the grass from coming back immediately. You can see my holes. What I'm gonna do is, after I laid the mulch, I realized there's just not enough soil in the holes, so I'm gonna go back through and just do another layer of that same soil mix in the holes to even them out. And then we're gonna plant our blueberries. Okay, so our holes are topped off with compost, and where we're gonna have the blueberries, and then also where the goji berries are gonna go, we added some peat moss. But down here, just compost. The peat moss is for the acid lovers. So the last thing we're gonna do before we actually plant is get a good water. You wanna soak down these spots where you're gonna be planting really good before you actually add your plants, and then we'll do another water once the plants are in there. So next time we're here, we will have plants ready to go. Okay, so here's the blueberries. When you plant blueberries, it's important to plant a variety of different types so that you get a good crop. They need to cross-pollinate with different types. So this is a blueberry patch from Rain Tree Nursery, and they look beautiful and healthy. I thought they were bare root, but they are not bare root. They are in like soil plugs of some sort. And you can see that they are ready to bloom and ready to open. The healthiest plants that I've ever ordered online, for sure. They look gorgeous. So we've got a couple different kinds. Chandler blueberry, Aurora blueberry, another Chandler, early blue, a Liberty in the back. What's this guy? Blue crop. And I planted one that I had almost killed last year that came back. I think it's a honey oi. I don't know how you say that one. That one's down there. You probably can't see it already. I'll show you at the end. But we're gonna go ahead and get these in the ground. Okay, so a couple things about when you plant. One is you want to make sure that you dig your hole deep enough. You want basically the top of this blueberry, where it currently is in a soil plug, to be at the top of your soil, with really not a lot piled on top of it. So here's the blueberry and its soil plug. What I always like to do is kind of loosen up the roots a little bit. Not a lot. I don't really want to disturb them too much, but make sure that they have some space to grow. That wasn't quite deep enough, so I'm just gonna go a little bit deeper with this hole because this is a pretty big one. Okay, and then you just kind of, a bunch of dirt fell back in, of course. You kind of stick your blueberry in there, make sure it's decently straight. Make sure that you pack back around the sides, especially. You don't want a lot of air pockets, so all of that side space around it, pack it in. Then pack back around it. I kind of push down just in the middle a little bit to make sure it's solidly in there. And do you see how, like, this is the top of that blueberry that just came out? I'm not burying that top down beyond where it was. It's sitting right kind of where it was, and I'm just getting the soil kind of even around it. Okay, so that was the last of the blueberries. There's the one that I pulled out of the ground and had sitting in a pot over winter, and it's coming back just fine. And then our 6 that we just got are in. The last thing I'm going to do before I go ahead and water is add just a little bit, not a lot, of this soil acidifier. The blueberries like a really acidic soil, and so I'm just going to go through and add a little bit of this, maybe like a quarter of a handful, to the soil surrounding each blueberry. This will last you know, for quite a long time. It degrades over time in the soil. So we're just gonna put a little bit around our blueberries before we water in. So I'll get that done, and then I'll show you the final image of the part 1 of this blueberry patch. Okay, so the berry patch is behind me. I'm looking a little tired. It took a lot longer than I thought it would take. So this was part 1. Like I said, I ordered some more berries. We've got goji berries, mulberries, and boysenberries coming sometime this week. So I've prepared all of the spots for them in this patch as well. And when they get here, we'll just bury them and water them. I'm gonna leave the blueberries uncovered with mulch for right now. They're just kind of sitting there with that soil mixture at the surface. That will help keep the soil warm for them to help establish their roots. I can water them and see, you know, what the water level is in their soil. After we get the other berries in and they've sat there for a little bit, we will fertilize one time and then cover with the mulch to finish this Back to Eden garden bed. You really want your mulch pretty thick or your grass is going to come through. This is not a perfect bed by any means. Grass will come through and we will have to fight it a little bit. But for the most part, it'll keep our grass back. So I will come back and show you part 2 when I get the other plants, and hopefully some of our blueberries will have even opened their leaves by then because they are pretty close.